we made it back again for a double dose tonight, and part of the reason why we got this double dose is it's just a day of drama. So we needed to go, and I needed to bring in some reinforcements, and Nostradamus right above me. Uh, for those of you who don't know, it's Michael Panozzo of Billiards Digest magazine. Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Well, I could have
Good.
been doing better, but I'm hanging in there. It's been a long day.
Yeah, you're the resident homer. No, I'm kidding. You're you go and stand by your team, but you also can be unbiased, which we always appreciate from you, Mike. And I had to bring you in, man. That's why I messaged you, because there was just so much to go and discuss today, and we had John and Nate on earlier, and that was fantastic. But I really just wanted to get your take on how the day went, how the drama was, what your perspective was. So I say let's just jump right into it, man. It started off very
Yeah,
hopeful, Mike.
yeah, it did. I mean, you're up 5-4 going into the day. You knew you were going to have to trot Jeremy and Chris out there in singles matches, but there were still. We talked about it earlier this morning. There were still some what we thought were favorable matchups for the U.S., particularly the doubles matchups looked pretty good, and Shane fell into the right spot in his singles match against Kachi. I mean, that looked on paper like, and this is Mosconi tells you to just throw away paper, but that was as favorable a matchup as you could have wanted for a singles match to try to get Shane off to Schneid because he was over two coming into today.
Right.
So in singles, and so that was huge. And so you opened up with Shaw and Chris, and you were hoping Chris could find some magic and make Shaw a little bit nervous or whatever. But Jason's playing great. Probably the only one who's played consistently well all 3 days. And so Chris, didn't look really comfortable, but it's easy to not look comfortable when you're playing Jason Shaw. He's firing balls from everywhere. So, that was a little bit rough. And then those three matches in the middle that we thought we had a good shot at, um, the guys just didn't look comfortable. They just didn't look
No.
like they had any bounce in their step. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough spot for Chris, and I think you can go and argue either way for putting him in, maybe not putting him in that spot after what happened at the end of the previous day. I like I the more we talked about it, I like the idea of kind of just getting him out there and let him just shake it
Yep.
off, and no better way to go and do it except though, by the way, you're going up against who'll probably end up being the MVP, and it's kind of an afterthought after everything that happened today. But Shaw's firepower has just been, I mean, phenomenal. He's came with it
Yeah.
shot after shot, match after match, Mike.
Yeah, he has. But you have to look at it. Jeremy, you had Jeremy, Shane, and Chris who had to play singles.
Right.
They tried to find that sweet spot for Shane, put him in the middle, which worked. And I think Jeremy really wanted to hold himself to last. I didn't think he wanted to go out there first because I think he thought he was the weakest singles player of the team. And so he's like, let's try to
Right.
get some momentum going early in the day. And I've got to use Chris and I've got to use Shane. So let's start with Chris because I want Shane in the middle. So it kind of made sense the way he put it together. Just unfortunate that Chris drew Jason instead of Al Katie. I think they probably knew he was going to be facing Jason because Europe's down one. They don't want to get down two at the start of the day. They don't want to give U.S. any momentum. They stole it from
Right.
him at the end of the day,
And they knew it couldn't
so
be
they wanted to
Josh. Right.
maintain that. Right, Josh couldn't play.
Right.
Alvin couldn't play singles today. So yeah, it made 100% sense for them to throw out Jason, and unfortunately for the U.S., it made 100% sense. You really had to throw out Chris first. So you're just hoping to maybe get a little magic from him, and it didn't happen. But that still only left you 5-5. It left you even.
It was knotted up,
So
Mike,
a lot
and
of
you
pull left in the day.
and you got
Yeah,
Captain America, on deck, and you got to think you like your chances given how Kachi's gone and struggled. And to be honest with you, he kind of picked up where he left off in Kachi and found himself in a 3-1 hole before he could even do anything. Part of what gets overlooked for the day for
right.
me is the fact that Shane's break, was was devastating today. I mean, his cue ball on the break was just incredible. How he just gets that squat there and just kind of ends up with these cupcake layouts, and everyone's getting racked with a triangle. But it just seems like when Shane's breaking the balls, your percentages of getting a break in run are pretty high just because of his control and his ability to go and get balls down. And Then for me, Mike, in that match is when everything just fell apart because as Shane goes, as you say, then
Yep.
Team USA goes and Shane went and Shane dropped off for me. You know, he not only made a couple
Yeah.
of mistakes to go and let Clenty back in the match, but they were kind of unforgivable mistakes because he was incomplete. He was cruising. He was going to go and win that match
He
five
was.
one
Yeah, like you said, I mean, his break was just amazing, and when he got to the table, there were easy runouts, and it looked like he really couldn't get the speed down because he would have what looked like easy runouts, cinch runouts, and from one ball to the next, all of a sudden he was way out of line, and now he has to power a ball in, or he had to draw a ball, whatever it is. He got into a couple or had a tougher angle than a much tougher angle than he should have had. So because these
for
balls were
sure.
pretty much out in the open. And so he played himself into some bad spots and ended up missing shots that he shouldn't miss. You watch Shane play, U.S. Open, International Open, events like that. Those racks they're done in 30 seconds.
Over
Uh,
with.
but um, but yeah, and he knew he had a player playing him who was not playing well. So you just keep your foot on your throat and you drill him home. And I don't know what it was, but he couldn't maintain shape, and then he missed even the shots he missed, even though they were tougher than they should have been. They were makeable shots. So he wasn't shooting any blind
I think
corners or what.
I
He
think part.
was
I
he
mean,
was just missing.
I, I know he overran a little bit, but there was times like post break like that. I remember that cue ball's in the middle and the ones on the side rail, and there's a ball hanging there, and he ends up cutting it with inside, and then but he ends up with the cue ball following, making into one, leaving the cue ball in the hole. But what gets missed is that it kissed that four ball, which allowed it to go and stay where it was at, because I think
Right.
otherwise that one ball would have gone and dressed up. So you can kind of say maybe that was a bit of a roll depending on which side you're going
Yeah.
and rooting for, but it's not things that you go and expect from Shane when you have that kind of layout, like you said, because we've all seen him go and get out. It's a foregone conclusion that that rack's done once he has
Yeah.
shape and everything's in the open to start the rack.
Yeah, yeah, no, it is. It is. So, and that to me, we can talk about, last night being a turning point from going 6-3 and five
Well,
four, and when Chris missed that shot in the end.
I mean,
But to me, this tournament turned on Shane's match with Kachi. That's to me when it turned. Otherwise, it's 6-6, and it's a dog race.
they're in it. They're in it.
But
It's a fight.
yeah, they're in it. They're still in it at 6-6, and Shane's coming up right away again in doubles. And so to me, that's the turning point in this tournament. That's even though it was Europe had won three in a row from last night going into the first two matches of today. It was still a dogfight. But when your lead guy goes in and blows a lead and runs balls into the rail with a 3-1 lead against a player who was limping home. That to me was devastating, not only to his psyche but to the team's psyche, and it just motivated the heck out of Team Europe. They came out firing in that next doubles match.
You know what we're actually mistaken, Mike, because after the Chris match was actually uh,
The doubles, yeah,
Sky. It was Sky and
right,
Tyler
in Tyler,
against Shaw and Filler.
right,
Yeah, yeah. And I on paper
right,
I love that
right,
matchup given how all four of those guys were going and playing, because I think Tyler was playing as well as anyone. Today's not a reflection of
right,
it, but leading up to it, he looked to me like the American MVP. And a real huge reason why they had the lead going into day number three. And but when you're up against Jason and Josh, and to me the what part of that match was really when Jason kind of was starting to go and cement his MVP, because he Josh was deferring to him. There were times when and it wasn't even a conversation. It was do this, do that, and even whenever Josh maybe may not have liked it, he still executed what Jason's direction or what his lead was, and they ended up getting a victory. But then you really banked on everything on SVB. You banked on him going and at least
yep,
getting you one out of the two. And as he went down, Mike, that body language to me completely sucked the life out of Team USA. I mean, he was when he lost to Clenty, he was a completely different person than he had been the first 2 days.
yeah. He checked out. He checked out after that match, and you could see it in his double match. Um, he played
But you're not just a player
doubles
anymore,
with
Mike. You're a vice captain on
He was
top
vice
of that.
captain. Yeah,
and you have
yeah.
young
You have to
guys
be
there.
that example.
You don't have veterans there, but I guess Sky would be your next veteran, or of course Jeremy. But you know what I'm saying, Mike, is that you have young guys
Yeah,
in Chris and Tyler, who are gonna go based off of how you go and act, and that's how you're gonna come out there. That's how you're gonna go and show yourself. It was tough.
yeah. No, that wasn't good. And that doubles match he played with Chris.
No, so he
The
played with
second doubles
he played with Tyler.
with
And they
Tyler.
were
Okay,
just
right, yeah.
overcutting
And
balls, they were undercutting balls. They
yeah,
could never they it
yeah,
was the same thing. They could never go and get any kind of traction because even if
right.
Europe gave them a piece, they would end up dogging an out that they should have had because of overran position, the table,
Yeah, they were.
whatever you
Yeah,
want to go and say. Missed opportunities, Mike.
yeah. Mostly they were. Yeah, mostly they were just not. They didn't have the speed down. They didn't have the position down. Tyler missed a couple of shots. And I think the way Shane was acting and playing affected Tyler's psyche. It's got to. It's hard not to when you're a young kid and you're out there and if Shane had won his match against Kachi, then Tyler comes out there, ready to go. But Shane, like I said, I think Shane checked out after the Kachi match. And then he really checked out at the end of the day, but we'll get to that.
Yeah,
But so
that's
yeah,
a whole other.
to me the singles match with Kachi was the turning point in this tournament.
Yeah, and as Shane went, like I said, the Americans went and ended up from there. The wheels kind of came off, and we thought that what looked to be a competitive Mosconi Cup, it was, for all intents and purposes, it was done. You lose the first match with Chris, excuse me, Jason and Josh go and take the first doubles. Then you got Shane losing back to back, and then at that point you find yourself 4 games down, and now you're going and having captain out there facing David Alcady in a match that he was a heavy underdog to. What really ended up being a fantastic match. The ending of it
It was.
was kind of bittersweet, but I tell you, everyone raves about Jeremy's tools, and he's a genius, and he knows so much about the game and experience. He leaned on every year of pool he's ever played. He leaned on everything he's learned up until that point to go and grind to get to 4-4, Mike.
Yeah, he did. And they were only down 8-5 at that point. So,
Right.
if he wins that match 8-6 going into the last day, you're still in there. And he did. He fought for every shot. He grinded his way through every rack. And you could tell he was a little bit
Had some
tight. He
big
was a
shots
little
too,
bit
Mike.
nervous. Had some huge shots, made a couple of great kicks. And we got a little lucky on the one where he got it in the corner instead of bumping it into the side. But either way, I mean, he was fighting and scratching. And then you got to the last rack, and how many safes did they play back and forth? He went toe to toe with David Alcade
Boy,
in a safety game for about 5 rounds each, right? Had to be. And it
oh,
was really
it was
nervy.
well
And
over
then and then he
five
got
innings.
yeah, and then he got the better of it. David sold out, and that's when we had Jeremy, who had used his extension really early in the rack, but didn't fluster him on any of those big shots later in the rack. He was sticking with it, and then all of a sudden, it gets down to 6 seconds, 7 seconds, and he
Yeah.
calls to have the cue ball cleaned, and uh, uh,
Well,
and
hold on,
and the
Mike,
clock runs
because
out on
before that, yeah, I mean, before that, it was I think of there's a number of players that you don't want to get in a moving battle with. Having David Alcady get in a moving battle with Jeremy Jones, you're not going to like your chances. And David got lucky to get to the shot first because he's playing. Jeremy played that ticky to come around 3 rails to get between. I know
right,
it was the 9, and I believe the 4 ball, and Jeremy ended up leaving it by
right,
the side pocket and ended up. That's where
right in
David
the
got the
window,
first shot. Really, after. Yeah, yeah,
right,
yeah,
right,
yeah. It was literally like this,
yeah,
and
yeah,
but like all the drama of the Mosconi Cup should be, David goes and cuts the 3 ball into the side. I think ends up moving the 8 ball to where the 6 now no longer has a window. So now you're in a really tough spot, right? If you're David, and it was funny because I remember the commentator saying, "Well, there's gonna be one more twist," and then he hits the 3 ball and goes and ties up the other, the 8 to the, I think it was
yeah,
the 6 ball. So, but boy, I tell you what, man, as someone who loves moving and loves seeing the tactical side of pool, seeing guys go and lean on every resource, whether it's banking or kicking or thinning the ball, and just the complete knowledge of how the ball's coming off, what English, all that fun stuff. Like
Right.
that was an amazing sequence, and for Jeremy to go and be there at 4-4 was just inspiring. And then it's like, okay, he draws the ball back, hooks himself on the 6. Now David's forced to go and kick in no man's land because once he kicks, everything's going to be wide open, right? You really got no chance to go and
Right.
kick two ways in that spot. And then the man got the shot at the 6, Mike.
Yeah. And he didn't get it done.
What's
You got
your
to step up and shoot it. And well,
what's your
here's the thing.
explain to me your thoughts on that rule, Mike? Or
The
if you
rules,
or
right?
if you knew about that
Of
rule,
course.
if you knew about the rule.
Well, you got to know the rules before you go in there. When you have an event with a shot clock, you got to know the rules. And I'm sure they were told the rules. He's the captain. He's got the rules. So there's been some videos floating around of
There has
a rack earlier in the tournament where Jason points to a ball, and the same ref comes over and cleans the ball, and while he's doing it, tells the guy to stop the shot clock.
the same
Now,
ref,
I
Mike.
have no
Same ref.
idea. I've not really same rep. So I'm not looking. I'm not being a conspiracy theorist about this, but there was some inconsistency, or was there some really fine point in the rule that allowed him to stop the clock for the match earlier in the tournament than for this one? I don't know what the situations were. I didn't look into it that closely. Be interested to find out. But obviously, to me, you know, you can't have the guy clean the ball when you're out of extensions and you're down to 5 seconds because that's just too easy a maneuver to buy yourself more time,
Right.
right? So that's a
And
really
that's the point of the
obvious thing
rule.
that
That's the reason why they implemented that rule, Mike, was
right.
specifically for that, because you'd have guys where they're in big spots and they want to just that little bit of extra time, and they'll go and say, "Can you
Yeah, sure.
can you get the ball?" And it
Clean the ball.
allows
Yeah.
that
And
extra
so
that extra 7 seconds to gain composure.
right. And so, but if in fact they did it differently earlier in the tournament and Jeremy remembered that, then he's got an argument. Or at least he can question, wait a second, I saw this happen earlier in the tournament. We need some clarification on what exactly happened. Jeremy took 100% responsibility for it later and said, listen, that's on me. Because I think he knows the spirit of the rule. And I think he really just kind of got into a situation there where he knew that he was out from there. He knew that there was so much pressure, and I think he just kind of panicked a little bit and thought he could buy
I
a
agree.
couple more seconds. Really, really a shame because I'll tell you what, I was out of my chair. I was standing there watching it when I saw the 6 open up on that
My heart
top
was
rail,
racing,
and
Mike.
I knew that I knew it right, and I was just like, oh my God, I couldn't be happier for anybody in the world more than I would have been for Jeremy at that spot. And I think the European players and fans to a man would have been just excited for him. You know, uh, yeah, just a real shame. I mean, it's one of those you just wanted to see. It was the same with wanting to see Chris make that ball last night.
Yeah,
You just you were really rooting for him. You wanted guys like that to come through in a big situation. And for Jeremy, if he'd have won that match, would have been, you know, if Europe goes on and wins, either way, that would have been, one of the
it's a
highlights of the
Mosconi
entire
Cup
tournament for
legend. That's
certain.
like stuff. That's like the stuff legends are made
Yeah,
of, Mike.
yeah,
That kind of
that's
fight and the show. Like, I wouldn't have blamed the guy if he ships it, because you just lost the first four and you're morally defeated. Your main player's already kind of checked out. Who he wasn't even there during all this fight, Mike. Shane wasn't even in
right,
the arena. He wasn't even there to go and give him the give him hell speech or whatever it is you want to go and call it, or keep your chin up or what have you. But
right.
it was a very inspiring match just watching Germany. And I was betting on Team Europe, man. But even then, like you said, it's hard not to go on route, because it was like he got there and he's got the shot and he finally gets on the shot.
Yeah,
And I know the cue ball is on the rail, and it wasn't a hanger, because as fast as this table's
yeah,
playing, you got to go and decide how you're going to go and hit it. If you're going to try to go and run into the ball, if you're going to hit it with inside to kind of make for a
right,
longer, tougher shot in the 7, which he's hit a couple of
Right.
times, or if you're going to come back and forth, let your stroke out, let that ball come down 2 tables. So Jeremy had some decisions to make there, and I think it was just that.
Yeah.
I think it was the emotion of the back and forth of it, and his brain just kind of it extend, just clean the cue
Went
ball for me.
freeze. Yeah.
Give me a couple, give me a couple more seconds, but that wasn't the rule. And
Yeah.
Marcel, to his credit, the referee, he cleaned that cue ball pretty quickly.
Yeah, and put it back really quickly. I guess he can't tell them, clock's still running, whatever. You can't tell the player what the rules are. But yeah, just really, really unfortunate, really anticlimactic. It really, even David at that point got ball in hand, and you know, he was waving the crowd on, when it was 1-0 and 2-1. But when it got to that point, he wasn't showboating at all.
Oh
He knew
no.
what a battle he had been in with a grizzled veteran who came with everything he had, and
Well, I mean, there's
he
some
was very
pride there too,
respectful
Mike.
of it at the end.
Like not just from a I want to get a point kind of standpoint. It's like I don't want to be the one guy to have a blemish on today. It's like
Yeah,
you've had perfection on the scoreboard up until this point. So I don't think anybody would want to be that teammate, especially being a heavy favorite like he was. But I don't think anybody wanted it to go and end that way. Nobody did from the players,
no,
and you saw that from
yeah.
the European team kind of going. And I don't want to say consoling Jeremy, but showing them a lot of respect, and not just David, but it looked like a lot of the European guys, at least like 3 or 4 that
Yeah,
I
yeah.
saw, went up
Jason
to
was
him
out
and
there. Clenty, yeah. Kachi was out there. David, Jason was out there. Boys was out there. Yeah, I mean it's a respect thing. These guys respect each other at the end of the day, and they know what kind of situation Jeremy is in this week,
yeah,
and
right.
and how well he's acquitted himself. On the other hand, and we got to talk about it. You talk about his main guy wasn't there. His vice captain wasn't there. I heard someone posted that he was sitting on the couch in the practice room. Well, I'm
Help
sorry,
me
that doesn't
understand
cut it.
this, Mike. Help me
Yeah,
understand
no,
this,
no, you
Mike,
can't.
because
You can't.
it's
This
it
was,
it it's bad optics, Mike. It doesn't look good.
and it doesn't look good, and it shouldn't look good. I mean, this is something that Shane's got to. I would hope that in the next couple of days he owns up to having made a mistake, because he wasn't just a player on the team; he was vice captain, and his captain was had
Right.
to play and was fighting for his life. And between every rack, Tyler and Chris and Sky were out there, pepping him up, and they were laughing and joking and whatever. And for Shane not to be there, sends a wrong message to the other players on his team. Sends a terrible message to Jeremy. Jeremy picked him as vice captain. Jeremy, tell me Jeremy wouldn't have felt better or more comfortable or more confident if he's got the best player in the world coming out there and patting on his shoulder and grabbing his arm and saying, "Come on, you can do this."
Well,
Would have had to have
he
made a
came
big
back
difference.
from
So
3-1
to me, it
down. I
was,
mean,
yeah, right. So to me, it was, selfish is the only word that you can use. And
it's a
I
big
love
word,
Shane.
Mike.
It is, but it's, listen, he's the greatest player of this generation in the U.S. He's the best player in the world. Every American says he's the best player in the world, and I believe it in my heart. But this was a selfish motivated thing. He was sulking. He was maybe mad at himself. Fine, okay, I can understand that. Maybe he was just ticked off, didn't even want to be in the arena. Okay, but at a certain point during that match with Jeremy, you gotta like man up, pull up your panties, and get out there and go be with your team and go
You
help
got
your
to put the
captain try
team
to get
first.
across that line. You do,
You gotta put the
yeah.
team first, and
So
it didn't. That wasn't the impression that you got from seeing that. And then they
nope,
show him afterwards sitting in there, just kind of disinterested. A lot of the same of what we saw whenever he's out there playing his doubles with Tyler. The end of the Kachi match, just completely checked out. While that's easy to do, because you had big moments and you blew it, collectively, not just Shane. But damn, man, when you see your guy out there who has no business being there, and then he gets his ass back in that match, Mike, and he's giving it all he's got, man. Like he's trying his hardest to go and get there, and you got to go and put the team first. Or I mean, I may get,
yeah.
I don't get it, Mike. I don't understand it.
No one's going to be able to explain it in a way where you would say, "Oh yeah, you know what? Maybe you're right." Not going to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm really curious. I don't know if he'd ever really open up and tell you. I'm really curious as to how much it hurt Jeremy. That the guy that he
Well,
put
you
his
know,
faith
publicly
in
they're
for
going
the
to say all the
Vice
right
captain.
things, Mike. You know how it is. I mean, publicly
Yeah,
they're going to
of
go and say
course,
everything
of
they need to
course.
go and
But
say.
privately, even privately, I wonder whether Jeremy's never going to hang him out to dry. I mean, he loves Shane, but it had to hurt. It had the smarts. It had to, uh, and I don't even, maybe he didn't even notice it during the match, but I'm sure he heard about it after the match, and I'm sure he's thought about it since then.
It's
And
all
I would
over
hope
social
that
media,
Shane
Mike.
was well, and I would hope that Shane was man enough to go up to him and say, "Listen, I'm sorry. I was really in a bad place with myself, and I just couldn't be in the arena. But I was in the arena. I was in the practice room, cheering and rooting for you, whatever he's got to say. I would hope that he talked it out with Jeremy because that's just it was really it really kind of uh, left a bad taste in my mouth for the end of what was an amazing performance by Jeremy.
Yeah, definitely. He showed that Jeremy really showed what he's made of. And I remember during the press conference of asking him, like, what kind of fight can we go and expect from you and or from your team and then you? And Jeremy made no bones about it. And it was he lived up to it. It wasn't just one of those things you
Yeah,
go and say where you're saying the right thing because I
yeah,
wouldn't blame him. Like I said, I wouldn't blame him for just saying the hell with it. You know, especially you lost four in a row. Now you're down 3-1. Okay, we're just gonna go ahead and just mail it in. You know, let's just go ahead and save face and we'll see you tomorrow and try to steal one and then, go about our business. But he didn't, man. And that was something that yeah, it was fantastic.
right.
And the whole
It
situation
was.
of the cue ball really just takes away from uh uh what that guy is really made of.
Yeah, I would have rather seen him hang the six in the corner than what happened because it just left you with that empty like, really, it's over. This is it. This is what we ended up with. So it was very disappointing from that standpoint. But think about it if you're Tyler or if you're Chris or even if you're Sky, you know, and I think that that's as much what carried Jeremy through that match as anything was, you know, at the press conference. You're right. He said we're gonna go in there. We're gonna fight the last ball because we're Americans and that's what we do. And he went out and lived it. He went out and walked it. And I think if you're um, Sky and you're Chris and you're Tyler, um, he's my man for as long as he wants to be my captain. And I think hopefully Matchroom saw that today too. I mean, we all talked about what kind of pressure Jeremy would be under if they lost big again or one thing or another, and was he going to get a free pass because he had to play all that stuff? Forget all that. To me, he showed the other American players today that yeah, this is
Well,
a guy that I'll go to battle with because I know he'll go full
oh, for
ball for me.
sure. I mean, like
Yeah,
when it's fine just to go and say I'm going to screw my cue together and go out there and do give it my all. It's another thing to go and show the way that he's done match after
yeah,
match to go and play the way that he's played and really just make it as ugly as it needs to go and be. But whatever it takes to go and win, Mike, those are the kind
yeah,
of guys you want to go and have
yeah.
next to you. You know.
Yep, absolutely, and he showed that. And so to me, you know, those guys will follow him anywhere, and he deserves as many more shots as Mantrum can give him. He deserves them just by what he did this week, hands down.
Yeah, just real quick, I want to touch base on the chat, guys. We appreciate everyone for tuning in and over here talking about the day's events and yeah, on in regards to touching base on some of the things mentioned in the chat. Joey's usually my guy for that. I'm not very good at it. So give me a little bit give me a little bit of a leeway there and some patience. But we're a man down because Joey's traveling all this evening. But there was so much to go and talk about that we
You're
have
my
to go and
Jeremy
break my
Jones, Mike.
yeah,
You're
man.
my
Yeah,
Jeremy Jones.
hey, I said, man,
Next
there's
man
too
up.
much. We gotta go and do it again. We gotta go live for a second time today because it really was just. I mean, the matches were pretty fantastic. The level of play by, like I said, Jason, the drama at the end. There was just so many storylines, Mike, and points to go and discuss. And I hope that on the cue ball situation, I hope that at least Matchroom puts out something. just address it so that way it kind of will go and calm the conspiracy theorists or whatever it is you want to go and call it, just for clarification purposes. But at the end of it, Mike, I also think of
Well,
this. It's like
based on previous experience.
well, yeah, yeah. Have a little bit of faith, Mike. Have a little bit of faith. And I
I
wanted to
do.
say
I
this though,
do. I
Mike, is
think that
that
they'll do the right thing.
fi- find me a sport where if you have a referee involved, and I'm not saying Marcel made the right call or the wrong call, right? I'm just saying find me a sport where you haven't had referees go and blow a call in big spots. You know, we've
No
seen it.
doubt.
We
No
in
doubt.
any sport. So
Yeah.
one of the thing I want to touch base on, Mike, is what were your thoughts on the crowd, man? Because I've seen a lot of stuff online, and I watched it. You watched it. You
I'm
heard
gonna.
it. I heard it.
Yeah, I watched it. I heard it. It's. Listen. It's we've been through this before, and it's oh, the Americans are just as bad, and yada yada yada. Listen, I've been to a lot of Mosconi Cups over there and over here, and in Holland when they were in Holland, and wherever. In London, they're the worst. And not overall, just but that's where you're going to get
I
a
saw a lot
good
of pictures of
handful, a
beer,
couple of
Mike.
handfuls
I
of
saw a lot of
yeah. I mean, a
alcohol
lot
there
of
in the front
and
row.
that's they talk about trying to and Barry Hearn has talked about this, and Emily's talked about this, trying to turn pool their pool programming into what they did with darts, which is this more raucous, festive, loud chanting, so, and it's all built around getting drunk and betting. And that's fine. I mean, they can drink, they can do whatever, but there's got to be better crowd control for sure. I mean, they had no control over anything that was going on in there today. And everybody, I was watching a lot of social media. Everybody saying the ref was an idiot for not, he had no control of the crowd. Trying to referee him, that's like telling an NFL football ref that he's supposed to control the crowd. It just,
It's a.
it's, there,
I
he
think
needed more
like.
help in
Well, I mean,
controlling the crowd. And
I think they're gonna do
but
what they want to do, right? Because there's so many of them, it's hard to go and police, right? But I think that there were certain moments where, like, if they're getting that, like, even if you address it and they don't listen to you, that's one thing, Mike. But don't stop addressing it because you still got to go and try to get some kind of respect from all these people, you know.
right, right,
And there
yeah.
and there
No, I
were
didn't
times
think
where
it
it
was
was
handled
tough.
well. It was very tough. It was very tough. And I've been in the U.S. and there's some jerk USA fans too, but not at that level of total, you know, kind of disorder that I saw today. And I'll wait and hear back. We have a lot of friends who are over there, Nate, and
Yeah.
who were over there for the
Nate
for
said it
the
was
event, and
bad.
I'll be interested.
Nate said it was
Yeah,
real bad, and they were really just giving it to Tyler. They're when Jeremy was there playing, they were kind of giving him hell. It's they had a lot to go and celebrate, right? Because they were sweating the entire team, and they made no bones about it. They interviewed Carl. He said we completely took these guys for granted. They go and interview Albin. They said they didn't really give him the respect that they should have. So for them to kind of be in trouble, so to speak, and then they go and get the lead. We took down Shane. We took down Tyler. We took down Sky. The booze is flowing, and they see him that they got him by the throat, and I mean it was kind of ruthless at times, you know. I
yeah.
think
I
from
mean,
a
when you start attacking players personally and stuff like that, then yeah, then it's just beyond crowd control. It's like, okay, you grab a guy and you toss him out, and you show some examples that way. You don't disrespect it. You can be as loud as you want. All that stuff with the extensions, squealing every time you say. Who cares? That stuff's fine.
yeah.
We want noisy, we want loud, we want the singing, we want all that stuff. But you start getting in people's grill and disrespecting the people who are out there playing, then you don't deserve to be in there. And Matrim's got to be held accountable for a little bit of that too. I mean, this is their crowd, this is their event. They've got to tell us, well, sorry guys, this is the level we want them at. Okay, now I know what I'm going to face, or you're going to do something about it. But again, this is another one of those
Well, I
instances
mean,
where I'd like to
at
see them
least some of
step
them
up
would have
and say
gone.
something.
Yeah, at least some of them would have gotten their ass together if they go and make an example of one person. I think that's all it would have taken. You
Absolutely.
know. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, I'd like to see Mantrum address that. I'd like to see them address the referee thing. You know, It's not, again, it's not conspiracy theories. It's not, just help us understand it. You know,
Right,
for me in the media business, I want to write about this, right? I want to know the
right.
facts. What was the call? What
Yeah,
was the reason for the call? What was the reason that this call was different? Just tell me factually. Send me a stat sheet. Send me the rules. Whatever you want to do. But don't just leave it up to social media and people who were there and
yeah.
people who know one of the players, whatever, to end up deciding what's truth.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. And I mean, people want to bring up the Jason comparison, but with all due respect, Jason's pace of play is not something to go and be, overly analyzed. Jason's a very fast and a rhythm kind of player, you know. And
Yeah, but
I think
nobody's saying that he tried to take advantage of a rule. I'm just saying that when I saw this video, the referee stopped the clock to
right,
wipe the ball down. Okay, so what's the difference between stopping the clock and not stopping the clock? Maybe there is. I don't know what it is. Tell me what it is, and I'm happy, and I'll go home. That's what I'll write about. But there was just a little bit of the inconsistency in the refereeing, or what appears to be inconsistency, that has a lot of people asking questions. So give us the answer. That's all.
yeah, I like to take the bull by the horns and just kind of get right in front of it to kind of, calm the conspiracy theorists out there. At the end of the day, like some of these people that are saying that, Matchroom is trying to go and just put, the Americans at every kind of disadvantage. It's just that, just what you did, Mike. It's laughable, right?
It is laughable. It is
Yeah,
laughable. But that doesn't mean that, that, like you said, they wouldn't, be smart to stay ahead of some of this stuff and just say, okay,
for sure.
calm down, pump the brakes, kids. This is the rule. This is how it was interpreted. He was right or he was wrong, whatever it
And
is. You just stay ahead of it, and and the same
for
with the
sure.
crowd. I mean, help me out here. Help me out with, is there any do you guys care about crowd control or not care about crowd control? Do you think they're out of line? Do you not think they're out of line? Is it worse in America? I don't know, but you
I,
know, um, just show me that you're at least paying attention, and that, that you've got a comment or a reaction to it.
I'll tell you this, Mike. There's nothing like, and I haven't been to one, and you've been to a lot, but there's nothing like from a fan's perspective and being having my ass at home. There's nothing like watching the Mosconi Cup when there's a crowd there and it's in the thick of battle.
Oh,
And I mean,
the
it's just
best.
it was fantastic the last few days. To go and watch. Kudos to them to kind of fade and everything that's been going on. Um, Let me ask you this, Mike, and it's 9 to 5 now. They already delayed one the fans' choice of doubles. And I think both of us expected to be Josh and Jason going up against Sky and Sky
Shane,
and Shane.
really interesting. Really
Does
interesting right there. The first match of the day
Yeah?
is going to be really interesting. Which Shane shows up?
Do they
Does he
got a
learn
shot,
anything
Mike?
from today? And do they have a shot? Quite honestly, you say no. You got to win 6-1 from there. Playing singles. And they're a heavy favorite in singles. We can match up with them in some of the doubles matches, and we did win a couple doubles matches, but singles is where they've got a big edge on us this year because of the lack of depth on the team. You're without Billy, you're without Justin Bergman, you're without Earl, you're without, whatever. You're playing pretty lean. So can they catch up 6-1 on the day? Highly unlikely. But like I said, the thing I'm as
We
interested as anything to see is the first match of the day. I want to see which Shane shows up because he better get ready to play tomorrow because he's going to play singles right after doubles, either
You
the
think
first or
so? You
second
think it's
match
going to be
after.
a double dose of Shane after today's
It's going to
performance?
either be a double dose of Shane or, well, no, it'll probably be a double dose of Sky, but then Shane will probably be right after
Yeah.
that. I mean, they don't have a choice. They got to get back. They got to hold Jeremy till the end, and if it comes to 10-10 and Jeremy's the guy, you can be. But you got to get yourself there. You can't leave any players. You can't leave your best players on the bench. That it's so that's just the way it's got to go. So I'm going to be um, really
So we're
interested to
looking
see
at
which
we're
Shane
looking
shows up
at
tomorrow.
Sky and Shane, then Sky and Shane again in the singles for the first three matches. Then
Uh, you know, yeah. If I thought it through, let's see, they got ice, so You got doubles. I would guess it would be Sky and Shane, followed by Sky. Then maybe Tyler, and then maybe Shane as your third singles of the day. Um, and then you would have to, so you'd have to go from there. So you'd have to
It's gonna be tough.
Chris and then Jeremy, and then yeah, it's a tall order for sure.
Right.
But yeah, it's going to be interesting. And let's say it for the fourth time in the last 2 minutes. I'd be really it's the way Shane comes out tomorrow is going to tell you about whether or not he learned anything from this afternoon until tomorrow morning.
Well, I mean, he didn't learn anything from his, playing to the end of the day, because that body language kind of stayed the same. So I'd be surprised, but you never know, I suppose. Um, yeah, it's I don't know, man. I try to look at this like unbiasedly, and even though I've said publicly, I've got some action out there, right? I've got some money, bet on there. So part of me was kind of rooting one way, but at the end of it, like I said, and I mean it genuinely, sincerely, is that I really like seeing competitive pool. And whenever I thought there was
Yeah,
going to be overwhelming favorites, as much as you can go and have in a race to five, the heart and the storylines that come out of this because of the way the ebbs and flows of it. I feel like I got robbed a little bit today, but it doesn't change like the all the greatness leading up to today, if that makes sense. So I hope there's one more
yeah, it does.
twist, in there, but it's gonna be super tough. I'm with you. I from a strategy standpoint, I don't know if I want him out there after what happened today, at least to go and start off with. I like the idea of having Sky back to back. I like the idea of having Tyler out there because he already
Yeah,
took down filler once, so it doesn't matter who you put him up against. He's shown that he's got the ability, and I know he didn't look that solid today. But
yeah,
I would argue you can go and chalk that up to you're up there against Jason and Josh, and then you're up there
yeah.
so that's difficult by itself. Um,
So if you're Alex Laley, who you running out there for Europe? You got the doubles. Then what do you do? How do you run your singles?
I don't know. I guess I would want to get. I don't know. I mean, to me, Jason's got the MVP locked up no matter what. If Europe goes on to win it, um, I guess maybe I'd rather. I don't know. I'd want to get Kachi out of the way because I would not want him playing at the back end. I know that. You know, that's just me.
Yeah, I think that, but I do think, and I've seen this happen before. I know Johan did it a few years ago. When you got the lead and you're at nine, you still need two. Uh, I think the tendency is to throw out one of your big guns right away and then save your other big gun for the end if you need them, which is what US did in
What?
18 in London when they started with Sky and played Albin, and then they held Shane for toward the end when it got to that 10-9. Then they had Shane playing Alex. So I could see Laley tomorrow playing the doubles and then either Filler or Shaw in the first singles match. And whoever doesn't play the first singles match, he holds to the end if he needs them.
Yeah, the only thing that I'm thinking there is, and the reason why I have to agree with you is just because I know they already took him for granted once. I don't see them going and taking them for granted or trying to give them an inch tomorrow. I think they want to finish it. They want to be done. They don't want USA to kind of get any momentum. They've already shown that they can be dangerous at spots in this tournament. And I mean, there were times where, when you're about to go down 6-3, there would have been a lot of questions being asked, including about the coaching there. So, um, yeah, I'm looking forward to
Yeah,
it though, Mike.
it's
It'll be good.
yeah, it'll be
But I
interesting.
I think
Like I
well,
say,
well let me ask you this though, Mike. Do they put out their lineups right away, or is it like by match? And the reason why I ask that is because I
oh
think
no,
if
it's
if I
right
s-
away.
okay, because I'm
It's
thinking
right
that
away.
if they
Yeah,
go out
because
if they
otherwise
go
it'd be
out and
too
win that
easy.
first one, yeah. Well, I mean, if they win the
Then
first one, then for sure I'm sending out Jason and Josh to go and finish the deal. You know,
yeah. Well, if they,
so
like I said, I really think I would really expect either Jason or Josh to be the first singles match, the second match of the day. And then again, like I said, I just think I would hold the other one to the 19th game, or yeah, the 19th game, because it just, you don't, what would, if something fluky happened and Jason and Josh lost at the beginning of the day? And now the U.S. is coming close, and the U.S. has a couple of big, even if they, no matter who they have at their end of their lineup,
yeah.
now you're trying to close the deal with David and Kachi. I don't think you want to be there. So I think that they'll front load it and back load it, and then take their chances in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, I thought David, I think David felt the heat of, oh man, I might lose to this guy in the middle of that match,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I think up until that point he was in complete control, and Kachi's just been, I mean, I don't know, I think it'd be tough to go. He's got to go and win in 22 to get back on the team because he does not look good at all right now.
yeah, yeah,
That three ball where the eight's hanging, I just couldn't believe that mistake, and that's why like that Shane match was really so massive because I mean,
yeah.
Shane
Huge,
had him, man. Shane had
huge.
his ass. I mean, anyway, Mike,
Huge.
one other thing I want to go and talk about, get out of here. Now today,
Yep.
November 30th through December the 3rd, Bally's Las Vegas Hotel and Casino, Mosconi Cup 22 is coming back to the US, Mike. Let me get your reaction on it.
Yeah, it's great. It's great that they've got a place picked out. I know Emily was there, not long ago in Vegas, and that was her reason for being there. I think it was after the U.S. Open. I think she went out there, and so yeah, it's great that it's going to be back in the U.S. Great that it's going to stay in Vegas. I'm glad they found another property that they can work with that's not as you know ham-handed as Mandalay Bay is.
I
Bally's
like
will be
Mandalay, man. That was nice.
it's they
Expensive,
take
but
advantage of
nice.
you pretty good there.
Yeah,
Yes, it's
yeah.
very nice. But no, Bally's will be great. And U.S. fans, if we don't get it done tomorrow, then U.S. fans be rough and ready for next year. And that's what the Mosconi Cup's all about. And
Yeah,
I think that the U.S. team will be better next year than it is this year in every way. I think Jeremy learned a lot this year. I think a lot of the players learned about Jeremy this year. I think that hopefully
what kind of
next
changes would
year,
you, I mean, I know it's a little premature, Mike, but what kind of changes, if any, do you see happening with this American team?
well, one of them is Billy. Is Billy back for next year? Earl posted
Big
that
question mark.
Billy's been banned for 2 years. Um, I've been in contact with the WPA, the World Pool Billiards Association, numerous times, and they insist that they still haven't seen an
I've
actual,
heard no,
you
yeah, I've
know,
heard no, nothing formal
yeah,
as came down, Mike.
nothing, definitive.
Right.
Which is weird because if that's the
It's
case,
been a while
then
now.
theoretically he could have played in this event because the edict hasn't come down yet. I don't know, but anyways,
Well,
if he can
I
play
think the
next
rule
year,
is,
that's
Mike,
a big
is that
thing.
because there's suspicion based off of the situation why he got suspended. That's the reason why he wasn't allowed to play. At least that's what I had heard. So because he's
Yeah,
under like investigation, even though there's no punishment that's been formally handed down just yet, because he's under investigation for the failed drug
yeah,
test.
I
That's part of
heard
the reason why.
Yeah, I heard otherwise when I wrote to the WPA, but it's you've got the WPBA, you've got the WPA, you got the WCBS, you got the WADA, the Drug Agency,
Right.
whatever, and sometimes one hand doesn't know what the other one's doing. So we'll just have to wait and find out whether Billy's even eligible next year. But that makes a big difference. It's in the U.S. Is Justin back in play? That could make a big difference. You got another year of Tyler and Chris going out there and traveling all around the world, and they're going to get better. They're young kids.
Oh, by the
They're
way,
learning.
what are you gonna do with the elephant in the room? The guy who was the star of the show who never made it to the show.
Well, yeah, that's a tough call. I don't know whether you feel obligated to give them a mulligan or not. Um, that's a tall order. And word on the street was that it was essentially Shane's pick. And we have to wait and see what kind of street cred Shane's got with Jeremy after this week,
Yeah,
right?
I agree
So
1,000% with you. I think Jeremy's. Um, I like the idea. I think what happened today and what happened this whole event, Jeremy's bought himself a lot of time, no matter what, just because of his heart, just because of his
yeah,
fight, and he's going to do whatever it takes to kind of get those guys there. So, um, I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree more with you. But man, I'm gonna be there. You're gonna be there. I see some donkey in the room in red, who by the name of Joey Ryan, who says he's gonna be there. So I kind of hope they have Earl back, but then I don't know who you're going and replace him because I do expect to go and see Justin back next year if he does go and actually play pool,
yeah,
professionally. I don't know if he will or not, as I know he had in the last 2 years. But if he decides to, I think he's got a really good shot at making this team, and rightfully so. But that remains to be seen. In the meantime, Mike, we got one more day left, and I didn't want to jump too far ahead, but they're still 2 points away, and stranger things have happened, Mike. I've seen a lot of comebacks in baseball
Yeah,
where there's two outs.
yeah, yeah. Well, we'll hope so. We hope that there's some fight in them tomorrow, and we hope that they push it, and that there's it's the most fun to watch when the nerves are going. When one team's clobbering the other and they're freewheeling, it's not really that much fun to watch either team, for either team's fans. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're a European, you can't kid me and tell me that you just sat back and enjoyed an 11-1 pasting. It had to get boring. You had to lose
Oh
the way
no,
a couple
no.
of nights.
And I love
Yeah,
watching pull, Mike, but that stuff's tough.
yeah.
It's tough.
That's
And
a tough sweat.
like today, I was just always hoping that like this was gonna be where like they stopped the bleeding. When Shane was up three
Yeah,
to one, okay, this is whenever they're gonna stop the bleeding.
yeah. And
When
like I said,
when
would have been 6-6 at that point if Shane wins that
yeah.
match. So, then it's like, okay, game on, race to five. That's, that's pretty good. So yeah, to me, like I said, for key match in the whole tournament for sure.
Well,
But next year we're in Vegas, Mike. And the coolest thing about Mosconi Cup in Vegas is that it's live in the UK, which means they start the matches at noon and they're done at 4:30, and we have the whole evening to ourselves.
well, I guarantee it,
So
I'm
we're
gonna
gonna,
be there, and I'm super pumped, man. I mean, I'm just beyond
yeah,
pumped. It's like, last year the score didn't reflect how competitive it was, right? We talked about this at length,
right.
but even if it ends up being like an 11-5 kind of match, I mean, there was a lot of really inspiring moments and things to kind of
Yeah,
take positivity from if you're an American fan. And I expect really
a
good
lot of
things next
talking
year.
points.
Yeah,
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 yeah. I
absolutely.
think, I think that the best thing that we can say about next year is that it's not going to be as easy to pick a team as it has been in the past.
It's huge, Mike.
There
It's huge.
it looks like you might get like 7, 8 players deep where you're thinking, okay, I can live with this guy. Okay, I can live with
Yeah.
this guy.
Well, like to me,
And so that's
I'll bring up
encouraging.
Tyler because I thought Tyler, didn't have any business making that team after the way he had played leading up to the last 3 months stretch, more or less. But damn, as he showed that he belonged. I mean, he has played just smooth, and I know, like I said today, wasn't necessarily his best, but man, he had moments where it didn't matter who was the other guy on that table because he was the guy who was dictating everything. He was taking control.
Yeah,
He was not going. He was not going and letting you back in. Once he was in whether it was a safety battle or otherwise, he grabbed you by the throat and he made sure he finishes you. Like he stayed completely cold blooded. So he's one of the guys that I want to go, and I know he's going to be playing everywhere next year. So
yeah,
um,
yeah,
yeah, I think there's a lot of things to be optimistic about. But like I said, in the meantime, we got one more day, Mike. So hopefully the lineups come out somewhat early, you know, and we can
yeah.
go we can go and talk about it a little bit, in the AM. But in the meantime, Mike, I want to thank you for being on, and I want to thank everyone for
Always a
jumping on
pleasure.
with us and joining the chat and staying here to watch us two go and banter and talk about pool. So until tomorrow, man, we appreciate it, and thank you again, Mike.
Pleasure.
See you, everybody.